We know more about outer space than we do about the deep sea and the creatures that are living in it. Every time there's a new deep sea exploration, we're always discovering unique and unusual species that have never been seen before. So this video is going to be a nod to some of the unusual fish that are out there. I'm going to focus on some of the unusual fish that you might see in the aquarium hobby and in public aquariums. Hi there, I'm Hilary for Waterlogged, on behalf of SaltwaterAquarium.com. In this video, I've compiled a list of unusual fish that you might see in the home and public aquarium sectors. Now, this list of fish isn't specifically based on their physical looks, but sometimes on their behaviors and some of the characteristics that they portray throughout their lives. So, let's go ahead and get started with this list. First up is the emperor angelfish. Yep, I'm doing this to throw you off. You might be saying that this isn't really an unusual fish, and if you look at it in any of its individual life stages, you would probably be right. However, if you take a look at the emperor angel as a baby, and then you take a look at it as an adult, you might be surprised that it's even the same fish. Emperor angels exhibit what's called dimorphism, which means their body patterns and some of their colors can change a little bit as they go through life. Now, these emperor angels aren't the only species of fish that can do that, but this isn't something that is all that common with the fish that we see in aquariums. Sometimes you'll see changes, but I like to think that it's a bit more unusual than it is commonplace. So for that reason, they are on my list. The next fish that I have that is definitely unusual and looks unusual as well is the anglerfish. If you see them portrayed in movies or in cartoons, a lot of times they're these massive, scary fish with cartoon little light bulbs hanging off the front as a lure, but if you see them in real life, they're actually fairly small fish. You might be able to fit one, maybe two even, in the palm of my hand. And their lures look nothing like a light bulb. It actually can depend on the different species as to what kind of lure they have. But a lot of the ones I've seen, it almost looks like they have, I don't know, I'm gonna call it like a dust bunny hanging off the front. I recently saw a video where there was an anglerfish that had a mustache looking thing. Kind of if you would go to a photo booth and put a mustache up, it looked like it had a lure with one of those hanging off the front. So all sorts of different varieties, and I think they definitely deserve to be on the list of unusual fish. Another unusual fish that I would add to this list is the Tassel Filefish. Now you might be thinking filefish, there's not really that much unusual about those. They're pretty common in the hobby. However, a tasseled filefish, not so much. As the name suggests, they have a whole bunch of tassels or little streamers sticking out all over their body. When I see them, they kind of remind me of a mono-colored, ugly Christmas sweater that you might see. And I don't necessarily see these in home aquariums. This is something I've seen typically in public aquariums. So next time you're going to a public aquarium, definitely keep an eye out for one and see if you can't spot them. When you hear the word fish, if you're anything like me, you probably have a specific image that comes to mind. For me, it's rather a streamlined, elongated body with a very specific set of fins. And so this next fish doesn't even come close to resembling that image that I have as a fish, and that's a pipefish. Pipefish actually look like a miniature snake swimming through the water. They have a very skinny, long body with a small little paddle tail and a rather long nose, allowing them to cruise around through the water. So I definitely feel like they are an unusual fish. Also unusual that's in the same family as the pipefish are seahorses. They look nothing like the image of a fish that comes to mind. Now, specifically within those seahorses, there's a real oddball, and that is the leafy or the weedy sea dragon. This is one that I typically see in public aquariums. If you're ever in San Diego, Birch Aquarium has a great exhibit with them, but their weedy or leafy appendages that stick off of their body are very unique. It kind of looks out of place in an aquarium, but if you picture them in their native environments where they're hanging out among eelgrass and bits of seaweed, it makes sense because they camouflage and blend in. So I definitely would consider them an unusual looking fish. The next unusual looking fish that I have for you is a batfish. Now, in some of my previous videos, I've talked about some of the large batfish that get the size of dinner plates. Typically, they start out black with like an orange rim, but that's not the unusual fish, though they are. The one I'm talking about as far as batfish for this video is the long-nosed batfish. You may have even seen photos of this and not realized that it was a fish. They have fins that sit on the ground that kind of remind me of like a chicken wing. So basically they'll use these fins and walk themselves across the substrate. But the unusual way that they use their fins to almost walk across the surface is not the only unusual thing about them. They have, like their name suggests, a long nose that is very distinct and sets them apart from all of the other fish that are around them, which I think definitely gets them a spot on the list of unusual fish. Okay, I have saved some of my favorite unusual fish for last, and the next one I've got for you is the Cubicus. Just like the name suggests, it is a fish whose body is in the shape of a cube. It doesn't fit the bill at all for what you would think of when it comes to fish, but these little guys, despite their boxy shape, can get around pretty well. If you ever watch any of those underwater scuba diving videos, you might see ones that are super teeny tiny, the size of a quarter, cruising around, eating bits of crustaceans and corals and little bits of algae. They're super cute and a lot of fun to watch, but definitely unusual. If you didn't know, I am a huge fan of pufferfish, which makes me very excited to be able to include a pufferfish in this list. Now, when you think of the standard puffer, they mostly, when they're calm, have a very smooth, flat body. Even some of the puffers that have those visible spines, like the porcupine puffer or the spotfin puffer, when they're calm, those spines lay flat along their body. However, the striped burrfish has spines that are always sticking up, whether it's calm or whether it's stressed out. They kind of look like a little mine swimming around in the water, and when they're stressed, they inflate themselves and it's even more apparent. But because they have their spines sticking out, I have included them in this list of unusual looking fish. Okay, I've saved my favorite fish for last, and I feel like this one absolutely defies what you think of when you think fish, and that is the Longhorn Cowfish. I used to have one for 8 years, and they have the best personality, but man, they look so unique. They've got these really long horns that stick out the front of their head and on the back of their body, and these fairly small fins that somehow propel their rectangular box-shaped selves around in the water. And as boxy and as odd as they look, they can actually swim pretty fast and maneuver pretty well for a fish that has such an unusual body shape. Now, the Longhorn Cowfish isn't the only one of the trunk fish that has an unusual body, but I feel like of all of them, it's probably the most unique. And of course, I had Frank for 8 years, so they hold a special place in my heart. Did I include your favorite unusual fish? If so, leave a comment. Also, I'd like for you to leave a comment if you're interested in having a video about some of the unusual fish that are found in the deep ocean, and maybe even those unusual fish that you might find in the pelagic zones, like that mola mola or ocean sunfish. If that interests you, definitely leave a comment. I'd be happy to make a video if you're interested. Okay, this has been Hilary for Waterlogged on behalf of SaltwaterAquarium.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.